Have you ever watched movies or TV shows and seen like hackers or people that just hack into different websites, companies, and games? And have you ever wondered how they became a hacker, how they started, and how their life is? So I'm going to be speaking about two different hackers that grew up gaming and hacking, and so, on a chilly autumn day in October 2015, John Brennan receives an unexpected phone call from a stranger. Hesitating for a moment, he picked up, only to be greeted with the words, "Hello, John Brennan, you're a loser." Hesitating for a moment, while this might have seemed like an ordinary prank call to someone else, John Brennan was no ordinary individual. As head of the CIA, he held high power. That's him in the top left. The U.S. government classified this call as part of a larger conspiracy involving identity theft, harassment of government officials, and cyber terrorism. The caller, a 15-year-old teenager from West Midlands of England, who called himself Cracker, which is like a kid in the top right, and that's where he lived, highlighted in orange. And he led a group called Crackers with Attitude, which is kind of funny. Together they targeted and embarrassed the U.S. security in leaking personal data of law enforcement officers, FBI agents, under the disguise of an infamous group, Anonymous. Anonymous is one of the biggest online vigilante group members that hack into companies and governments, and is now a worldwide and widely recognized hacking group, which that's their logo in the bottom right. The story begins in 2008 when another teenager known as Default, initially drawn to hacking through video game cheats, Default becomes fascinated with the power of cheating and just having power of the computer itself. Inspired by Anonymous, he got into hacking, eventually joining a group called AnonSec, which is just a break-off group of Anonymous. As his skills grew, he learned how to take control of a botnet, which a botnet is that little, can't really see very well, but it's kind of, you hack into like a bunch of different computers, and then you could take control and use those computers to do other different things that you want to do. And he hacked into a Canada medical school, and he was able to delete $9.5 million worth of student debt. Just straight up, he went into their files, everything, and just deleted it, which is crazy. And so that's from his podcast, Darkest Diaries, which he actually has a whole episode of his whole life on there, which would be, it's super cool to listen to. So, and soon after all this, he gets really paranoid. He doesn't want to be caught. So every time he boots up his computer, he takes like around 30 to 40 minutes to just boot it up, because he goes through all these different things to secure his computer. And he uses a satellite dish to connect to the local Dairy Queen's Wi-Fi, because he doesn't want to use his own Wi-Fi to get traced back. So after he does all this stuff with just hacking random different schools and companies, he teams up with Kraken, and they target the U.S. government. So they don't like their involvement in the Middle East during then, and they start targeting different high-up officials like James Clapper, then the director of national intelligence, and they start off by hacking Clapper's email and rerouting all his phone calls to like this Middle East call network. So he just gets a bunch of spam calls to this whole network, and then they start just hacking the John Brennan, the head of CIA. So he goes ahead and looks up he finds his phone number and finds his account just looking up a random Google search, and he pretends like he works at Verizon. So he calls them up, he gives them a random phone number, and it somehow works. So he gets access to his whole Verizon account, and he grabs his phone number from them. And so from there, his email is also on there. So he hacks into his email, and if you're gonna scroll down just a little bit, he finds tens of so many documents, like sensitive FBI and CIA documents, one leaking like over thousands of CIA emails, and tons of just private information, which cost the CIA around, it cost them around $9.4 million in damage just in the CIA alone. But soon after, however, their actions did not go unnoticed. So they eventually were apprehended by the FBI and sentenced to 5 years in federal prison in order to pay $145,000 in restitution. While pleading in court, he said, "I thought what I was doing was right in terms of political justice, but 2 years later, I realized I was completely wrong." Cracker, on the other hand, faced consequences in the UK, spending 2 years in juvenile detention center for his role in the hacking spree. As the dust settled, both teenagers learned from the hard way of their actions, fueled by political ideals, came with severe repercussions.